creating curiosity by asking better questions. This is Shed Talk. Leo King is the owner of King's Fitness, a Calgary strength gym focusing on community and environment, a physical transformational coach, transforming hundreds of bodies, a professional natural bodybuilder, placing second at the 2021 World Championship, and a national ranked powerlifter. Boom, I got an eye on you. You know what? Leo, the greatest trainer in the world, the greatest guy in the world, training me for 5 years. Thank you for coming on my podcast because you're a guy that changed my life 5 years ago from 240 pounds. Okay.
Crazy. Yep.
Competing with the WNBF Bodybuilding Federation because you're great at what you do. Leo, thank you very much. And thanks for joining me on Shed Talk. What was your day today, buddy?
Today was a great day. Yeah, I got to help people change people's lives. And every day I wake up and it's all about having fun. So, and I get to do that from my training studio and with people like Kevin Halliday, and honestly I can't imagine a better life. So but thank you for inviting me onto Shed Talks, and we get to talk about whatever we get to talk about, right?
Oh, you are so right. And you know what, I have to talk about dealing with somebody about motivation, determination, and in the gym and what it was all about to get into shape. And looking at yourself 2 years ago, coming in second.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I mean, it's always been a dream of mine. I competed at my first world championships for natural bodybuilding, the biggest natural bodybuilding event in the world, in 2012. So I was 23 years old at the time. I had turned pro earlier that year. So, of course, an incredible experience. Did not place in the top 5, and I just shouldn't have expected to either, right? So, but I came back in 2014, 2017, and then 2021, two years ago, and placed second. And it was just an absolutely incredible experience. Just a total internationally packed field. And yeah, I beat people that I idoled, 5-10 years ago. So it was an incredible experience.
Excellent. Yeah. So what's the difference between a natural bodybuilding and then you get the guys on the steroids and stuff? Because I'm doing the natural, okay?
Yeah.
Meaning at 50 some odd years old and getting on the natural and actually learning what natural is actually all about. And I'd had no idea that natural is, steroids, but it's actually not. It's taking this. Mm-hmm. It is so cool. What's the difference between the two?
So with regards to natural bodybuilding, it's not using performance enhancing drugs, and that steroids is a part of that, but it's also a whole ton of other things. It could be fat burners, it could be things that enhance muscle size and pro hormones and steroids and stuff like that obviously give people an advantage. So we focus on obviously what you can do without any sort of performance enhancing drugs, what we can do naturally. So food and training, really. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I got a question then. So when all of a sudden when guys are coming to you and they want to work out at your gym and they're doing this and you being the president of the federation here in Canada, what do you tell them? Because I know when I came to you to say, hey, I want to compete in this, and I had no idea on the drug side because there's not to do the drug side, but I would have no idea. I was so new in it. What is the most common drug that they actually use that I don't know if it's Advil or whatever. Like, what is that common drug that people say, oh, I got to use that?
To gain an advantage. Yeah. So something that would ban them. So testosterone is number one, and there's a bunch of pro hormones that are out there. Anavar, Decabol, and these are all things that have been around for decades, honestly. Some of the latest ones, clenbuterols, have been used, but people will use growth hormones. They'll use insulin. They'll use thyroid stimulating hormones and a whole bunch of things, right? And some of this stuff can be prescribed by a doctor, right? For medical reasons, right? And that's a whole different conversation. But a lot of this stuff is being bought from coaches off the black market, right? So typically if a coach is coming to you and it's like, hey, if you really want to get, if you really want to win, then, we have to maybe start taking this. And a lot of athletes don't actually question that, right? So it's kind of it is a big tainted part of the industry. Who do you trust, right? Like, a coach was recommended, but maybe they weren't the right coach for that right federation and such like that. Maybe some of their athletes aren't natural. So I think you have to, practice what you preach. Go and work with people who you align yourself with, right?
So these guys that are using these drugs, what kind of age are they in? Like 16-year-olds? Like I see young kids going in there and say, "Hey, I'm at the gym," and they're doing this, and they're big, and they got zits on themselves, and they're looking and not realizing you're gonna die, man. Like this is pretty serious shit.
Yeah, there's a lot of under 18-year-olds taking it because they see the Instagram, right? The Instagram's social media is huge, right? And they see everyone is in their face and they're like, well, they're like that. And, maybe they're 10, 20 years older, right? But they want it now. We're in a now world, right? Everyone wants things tomorrow, right? But they don't want to put in the long-term work. But reality is some of the top unnatural bodybuilders, they competed for a long, long time naturally before finally making that decision. And I don't bash on any sort of I don't think it's right or wrong, right? I compete the way I compete for my own reasons, but if someone wants to choose to take them, but I will say that people should go as long as they can naturally, get the best results that they can do first, and that will take a decade, that will take 15 years or so, right? And then if you do make that decision, then it's all the power to you, right?
Yeah. Well, being over 50, and I'm looking at this and starting bodybuilding, and where I was before, 240 pounds, and then going in and meeting you and saying, okay, here, I'm going to get into the weights and work out. Holy crap. It was amazing to see every aspect and what it took on the sets and understanding your foods, your micros, your macros. I have no idea what a macro. Is it micro or micro? What is it?
So they're short a macronutrient.
Yeah, what is
kind of your energy deriving foods, right? So your proteins, your carbs, and your fats, right? So that's the things that you're going to get from your steak and potatoes,
right.
All that sort of stuff. Your micronutrients, that's going to be all your vitamins and minerals. They're all the stuff that keep you healthy inside, right? So
did you say vitamins?
Vitamins.
Vitamins? What's vitamins? I had to catch you on that one just because. What's a vitamin?
Yeah.
No, that's cool.
All your vitamins, your minerals, your fibers, and stuff like that. That's more of your sort of your micronutrients and stuff that's going to keep you healthy and functioning on the inside.
So,
right?
so how are you actually gauging the two? And then they say, well, you got hey, how much macros are you? How many are you having? And I'm going, I have no idea. Yeah. My food's coming prepped. It's looking like this, and I'm assuming everything's awesome, which. You don't get an eye like that. Not looking awesome. Hey, thanks for Leo for helping me out with that. Yes, but no. Why do people actually have to measure it?
Yeah. So I mean, we all have a baseline whether we're going to lose body fat or gain weight, lose weight or gain weight, right? And you have to be in a caloric deficit or you have to be in a caloric surplus, right? So when we actually break down the calories, then that's how you get sort of these macronutrients and what are our sort of targets for the day, right? So once we found that baseline, we know what someone's maintenance levels are, then we can start, either removing food depending on the goal, or we have to increase food depending on the goal, right? So after a competition, for example, we started to increase your food, right?
Right.
Along with that came increased body weight, but ideally increased muscle size and everything else, right? So, and then, what happens when we get ready for a competition? We start to remove a little bit of food, and then we increase exercise, et cetera, right? So, and that's the goal of getting lean enough, getting enough body conditioning to actually step on stage there. And why we break down the calories into the macros is because they all have a certain role, right? So protein builds muscle, right? Or maintains muscle. And there are essential amino acids in there for, internal support, et cetera, et cetera. You've got your carbohydrates, which is mostly your energy deriving sort of your food substrates, potatoes, pastas, breads, et cetera, et cetera. And then you have your fats, and there's, we need fats for certain absorption of things. And again, it's just, in essence, it's an energy, but it's those two things that the carbohydrates and fats that we typically have to remove when we're getting ready for a competition versus building up and stuff like that.
So I've got, coming to you for a workout, and someone's coming to me and says, I got to get into shape. I got to stop drinking. I got to get into shape. I want to go that next level. And where I found people and myself as well is that I had to have a trainer. I'm motivated to go, but I needed a trainer, and how important that was to myself to basically be accountable for that. But is that a big deal for to have a good trainer? Can you do this on your own?
Yeah, some people can. For sure. But I would say the majority of people, they need that accountability because it sounds simple. Just go to the gym 3-4 times a week and follow this plan. But there's you can buy 1 million programs online, right? Hey,
and I found the programs.
Yeah.
When you had the programs, you do this, and all of a sudden you're spending an hour programming it in, and then then you can't track it. Then the next day I'm over here, and it's like, ugh.
Yeah.
And then, I love this story. The social media side of it in bodybuilding, not bodybuilding, but working out, because I go to the gym and stuff, is the Instagram people taking photos. How do you feel about that? Like, when all of a sudden you've seen the photos, oh, there's a girl over here and it's like this, and it's social media. How do you feel? Like, is that kind of, is that a taboo? Like, it's kind of like gym etiquette. Is that gym etiquette?
So I think now we're in a world where it's more and more acceptable, for sure. So it's a double-edged sword, right? Like, I think you probably talked about this before. We're all our own brand now, right? So how are you branding yourself, right? Are you branding yourself with those side booty shots? Right. Are you branding yourself with those, flexing under the sort of the mirror with the abs shot? Right. Or how are you sort of branding yourself, right? Now, as a gym owner itself, I think there are some things that now it's a marketing machine for myself, and I don't have to do anything as well. So I'm just kind of like, I think there is a good side to it when it's done right. And as obviously, I think it can be taken too far as well, right? What are they, everyone's trying to sell something, right? So it's like, how are you branding yourself? So
question on the trainers, because you have a lot of trainers. Mm-hmm. Is there ever an issue with trainers basically having affairs with customers or clients? Like, is that an issue? Like, can that be I'm just curious.
We haven't had any, thankfully, but I can see it happening for sure. Right. Like trainers and clients, I'm sure it's a relationship. We're a service-based industry, right? We're always building relationships. So I'm sure certain stuff happens, for sure, 100%. But thankfully, we've got a really good, solid group of trainers at King's Fitness. We haven't had any issues or any sort of concerns. We've had good relationships come about it as well, right? So
oh, definitely. And then one of the things is I recognize a lot of people when I talk about when they're going to the gym and stuff like that, is that they actually say, you know what, I have to work out before I go to the gym. What does that mean? Yeah. I don't understand that statement. And it's funny. No, I got to get myself in shape, and here you go. How do we get people through that whole mindset? Like, it's in their head, and what do you do with something like that?
It's totally in their head, because it's like they never put their foot in the door, right? They always say that they're gonna, I'm gonna get in shape before I get in shape, kind of thing, right? And they just never get in shape, so they never get fit in the gym. Versus like, hey, just pick up the phone and phone someone, and or ask a buddy. It's like, hey, who are you training with, or who do you trust, et cetera, right? And actually book that first consultation, like you did, right? It was like right away. It just shot me an email or a phone call or a text or whatever it was, and it's like, hey, I'm Kevin. I got your name from here, and do you have availability to meet this week or whatever, right? And it's just being proactive and taking action, and that's what 90% of people don't do, right? And then they're still stuck in the same place that they were 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and it just makes it harder and harder to actually make a change.
Yeah, and it's one of those things, the things that you don't know, because I know from my experience of going into the gym was that when I phoned you up and said, hey, Leo, Kevin here, could you train me? I want to actually, and I was overweight. I'm going to train. I want to compete in a bodybuilding competition. And I was large. And then going, yeah, can you train me and do it? And it was interesting. You said, yeah, no problem. Here's what you're going to do. We're going to get you trained. And I'm thinking, I wonder if he thinks I'm full of shit, because the bottom line is, did you actually think that, like, coming in?
Yeah, 80-90% of people say that they're going to do something, but I would even say more than 90%, right? They say they're going to do something, but they never actually follow through with it. But I could see from day one that you had a different mentality about things. So, and sure as shit, you followed right the way through, and not just did it once, but now done it a few times, right? So, and again, like you talked about at the beginning, came from 240 pounds. What did you compete at?
161 pounds of pure, utter. Oh my God. I was and you know what? You don't know you're fat or skinny till you're out of shape. It was like, I don't know I'm in shape until you're out of shape. And it's one of those things that I would look in the mirror, and then here I am at 161 pounds, and I go, oh man, was I ever big at 240? So now I think I'm 195 right now, and I'm looking and going, oh man, was I ever skinny? And when you start comparing yourself, and then that mindset becomes in working out is a mindset, and every single person that you meet and talk to are struggling with that mindset. But as a bodybuilder or someone that works out consistently, you have to be so motivated and determined to go to that next level and share your experience with everybody.
To begin with, it's a lifestyle, right? So then that's what it is. That's it's kind of it's ingrained in you at that point, right? So whether you're training 3, 4, 5 times a week, et cetera, you're eating a certain way and your sort of habitual patterns are done a certain way. But then, yeah, you're right. To take it to the next level, everything you have to cross all the T's, dot all the I's, sleep has to be on point, water, like you said, your macros, your micros, your calories, your training has to go up a level, right? Your activity, right? So, and that doesn't happen without some sort of sacrifice somewhere, right? So, maybe it's a bit of work, or you have to cut out certain relationships and stuff like that, right? And you got to prioritize other things as well. But you really do have to take it up to that next level. And again, everyone sees idols the people on stage and on social media, but they really don't understand what it truly takes until they start the process, right? And so, yeah.
Oh no, and it's a huge process. And what's interesting about it is injuries. Because when I look at you from 2 years ago, where you're at, and then now you're going to be competing next year, which you'll obviously, you were, what was it, first place loser, second, I guess? Is that how that works? No. No, but being second, where you're at now, because you're a lot bigger. Are you ever concerned about the injuries? Like, I watch now that I'm in better shape now. What's the greatest injury that you think could happen to you now? Knock on wood, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, exactly. I've changed my training a lot over the last probably 3 or 4 years, because I would always focus on the movements that I could be the strongest in, which is typically movements that you are quite compromised in. So the last few years I have been getting injuries here and there, right? So I've actually made a big change to my training. I'm actually doing a lot more exercises that are a lot more joint friendly, right? So a squat versus a leg press, for example, a squat is going to be way more, going to provide so much more tension for your joints, for your low back, even your shoulders and stuff like that, versus a leg press, versus they actually get very similar stimulus and results. So I've actually changed a lot of my training to be a little bit more, to actually hopefully extend my career as long as possible, right? I want to be competing for the next 2 decades, right? So yeah.
So when you're doing weights and everyone's doing weight, what is one of the most, I wouldn't say dangerous weight out there, but an exercise that guys try to avoid it as a beginner, intermediate, or expert? Like, which exercises actually be careful of?
I mean, there's a lot of, I think every exercise is at a stage is probably good, right? And initially I would start people off with a squatting pattern and back squatting and stuff like that, but they're not as strong as they potentially could be in 5 and 10 years. And that's the difference. It's the loading and the stress over time. Squatting 100 pounds on your back versus squatting 500 pounds on your back is going to stress it totally differently. So actually, initially, I'm going to be wanting to create those movement patterns and those habits that for people when they're starting off. But as they're getting a little bit more intermediate, and especially as they're getting a bit more advanced, then you have to just be a little bit more specific and why. But they've also built up all those motor patterns over time, right? So initially someone comes in, never lifted weights before, etc. They're so uncoordinated relative to their body and their whatever. So you actually have to go through these kind of, over time, build up these complex movements, get them strong in it, build up these motor pathways and patterns, and then over time, as they're actually getting stronger and stronger, you're actually going to start removing that away and actually start replacing it out with stuff that's going to be, like I said, a little bit more joint friendly, that they can keep progressing and ideally not get injured. So,
would you say like a deadlift? Because I know when I'm doing a deadlift, an actual deadlift, it's like, wait, I don't want to go any further because all of a sudden I'm scared something's going to happen. And you see on the internet and everyone's saying, oh, stay away from deadlifts. Now, is that an urban legend, or is this something that kind of watch what you're doing with that? Yeah,
you've always got to take it with a grain of salt, right? It's not going to say it's like it's the worst thing for you. Obviously, there's tons of deadlifters that have. There's a reason why people deadlift. It's full body motion. It's a straight powerful exercise. You're going to build up a ton of muscle in general, but at a certain point, there's probably the risks versus the reward get more diminishing over time, right? So at the beginning, as an enter into this sort of middle sort of career sort of thing, we're gonna probably still deadlift. Maybe not in the contest prep. That's a whole different conversation. You don't want to be leaner and leaner and then be doing these sort of more complex movements. But for building, and once the energy is in surplus, etc., then they're a good staple, I would say. But then maybe as you still get quote unquote more advanced, maybe it's something you do less and less of, or maybe you change out the movement from a regular deadlift, a conventional deadlift, to a Romanian deadlift, right? Where it's something that's going to be a little bit more directing into the sort of the hamstrings and the glutes, but way easier on your, say, lower back. Yeah.
Right. Now, on the bodybuilding competition, when people are actually competing, the women, what are the age brackets like from? Why do they get into it too?
Yeah. So, I mean, the age group, we have age brackets from 16 to 23, which is called junior. Then we have open, which is typically open to everyone. Then we have the masters age groups, which is 40 plus, grandmasters, which is 50 plus. And grandmasters champion right here. And then,
exactly.
And then we even have a super ultra grandmasters, which is 60 plus. Yeah. So, and people have been competing. We've got one legend in our sport, in our area, Mr. Chuck Thompson, who's been competing for 6 different decades, so almost like 50 years, which is just incredible. He started competing at 18 and now he's in his 72, I believe. People start at a young age and they continue competing for a long time, and people get into it like yourself in early or mid 50s, right? So,
and it was interesting because starting at my mid 50s and all of a sudden having a lifestyle change, being in fitness and overweight, and it was like, okay, where am I going to go at 50 to the next level? And being motivated, okay, being determined, and all of a sudden having a mindset. I didn't realize the mindset in bodybuilding, okay, and never mind fitness, but actually the bodybuilding, because it's all about food. It's all about working out. It's all about your muscles. So I had sore knees. My legs were sore. Everything about my body was sore. And then when you start getting into the bodybuilding aspect of it, and one day in that process, everything started to change. I call it like the things you know that you don't know. And as going through that, and I had no idea how involved bodybuilding was to actually clearing your head, getting a mind space. And that it didn't matter. I didn't have to be 19 years old and lifting my whole life, but I could actually start at 50 because I never lifted before. And then now I can create something that I've never done before. Like, what a great sport to be in. And I don't think a lot of people understand that you can get into it at an older age. You don't have to. Now I'll have to ask, is this an urban legend about, okay, you're over 50, you can't gain muscle, you can't do this, you can't do this. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, weightlifting, strength training, whatever, is going to be the most beneficial thing, and even more so as you age, right? Because that's the ages where you're now starting to, if you don't stress the body, you're going to start losing muscle mass. You're just going to start losing bone density. You're going to start getting, joints are going to hurt more because, again, there's no strength around them to actually kind of like actually function like every day. And then you start getting all these niggling pains and injuries and stuff like that. Then what happens is people, then they don't want to start. They've never lifted weights their whole life. They're afraid of it or whatever, right? But now's the best time to actually start, right? So whether you're quote unquote bodybuilding or just, again, doing it for just in general health and lifestyle reasons.
Oh, right? No, and going to the gym and actually somebody be able to go to the gym and just do it and get a proper trainer to train you, and all of a sudden get a nutritionist if you need a nutritionist, or talk to Leo and say, here's what you do for the next step. That I had never had that big of a change in my life and in a mindset of being positive, reassuring, and then doing the things that you need to do. Yeah. And then focusing on our goals, your achievements. And then it just opened up a whole new realm. Yeah. And then the greatest people in the world.
You talk about goals, right? Like, we didn't take that. We wanted to get on stage, right? But that wasn't that's not our 3-month goal. Right. Mm-hmm. Remember, you got to take this big picture sort of goal, and you've got to start breaking it up into sort of micro goals, right? And it's like, you got to start, okay, let's start just, we're going to just start eating a little bit better, right? What does breakfast look like, lunch, dinner, etc., right? And we're going to take you made a whole lifestyle transformation, but it was piece by piece, right? Like, it wasn't until year 2 or 3 where we really, like, we made nutritional changes, but we didn't really get you on a fully set meal plan right from day one, right? Because you've got to learn and create these habits for yourself at some point, right? And we took your training. We started at 3 days a week, but we slowly progressed you over time. We didn't go from 0 to 100, right? Like, you got to take someone and you got to take them where they're at. What are their big term goals? And then you got to break them up to make sure that they are successful. Because if they're not going to be successful, then almost what's the point, right? That's our biggest challenge, is how can we make our clients successful in their own personal goals.
So working in the gym, because you're the bodybuilding, you've got lots of, how many trainers do you have?
You have about 30.
So you got about 30 trainers. They're coming in, they're training everybody. Then you have big box gyms. What do you find the difference between a box gym and your gym?
Well, we focus heavily on community and environment for sure. So people are coming in. We, from the outside, our facility may look fairly intimidating to begin with. In essence, when you break it down, it's just people lifting weights. But when you come in, the energy is totally different from a big corporate sort of commercial sort of style gym. Whether someone's 12-year-olds training to compete in basketball or lacrosse or whatever, or whether they're an 80-year-old who's just getting started for the first time and they just want to live a healthier, better life. We have everyone in between, whether it's male, female, young, old. It's an incredible space, and we get people. We really just want people to work towards their goals, right? And
you know what I don't understand, and I have to ask this question. I pay a membership, okay? I pay a membership here. Mm-hmm. So I go into a gym, I pay them to pick something up and put that down. I don't get it. Like, I could do that at home, pick something up, put it down. I'm going, oh, here we go. I got to pay someone to do this. So I get a good kick of it, but actually it's kind of funny because watching people come into the gym, and especially at your gym, and you see that it's it's not intimidating because you got power lifters, you got everybody there, and they're all friendly. Everybody, and regardless of which gyms we go to and do it, as long as you show up to the gym, there's no such thing as a bad workout, and there's no such thing as not doing something that you don't love, and recognizing where you're at and loving what you're doing and seeing what's the next step that you're going. What is your next step?
Well, we're getting on stage in 2024, so
2024, yeah.
There's going to be a few shows in there. I haven't quite decided, but we have a couple of shows in Switzerland and Germany. There's also one in Dubai, and then our big world championships is going to be in Boston, I believe. So there's a few shows that I get to choose from. I love to travel, right? This is my big passion as well. Is competing in stuff, but also to be able to travel and experience that around it, right? So ideally, I'd like to, we're gonna hit 2 or 3 different shows next year and have a good time with it.
Good. Yeah. So if I'm gonna go on to Vegas and I'm gonna put on some betting and I'm gonna say, all right, the next winner is going to be
Leo King.
Yeah. All right, you heard it here. Leo King's actually going to win this. Is that true?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Hey, Leo, thank you very much for joining me today. And thank you for being that guy that is great and a great trainer.
Yeah. And thanks for that phone call 5 years ago.
Yes. Shed Talk. I got an eye on you.
Now you know. Shed Talk.